Now you're dealing with a vibe that'll fly. Try every style, stand up, dance up, and make the crowd go wild. I don't think you understand how serious this is. Well, get curious, it's furious, big biz. I dance when I walk, I dance when I talk. My dancing is sharp like a ram from a shark. My life is the bullseye, dance is the dart. I don't even need no beat, cause dance is my heart, get it? Yeah, it's my heart, so I'ma stand out pumping. Do a pirouette and land out crumping. Now that's crazy. That's lyrical modern dance, a tap, baby. Some ballet to some hip hop. Now is that lazy? It's hard work. You finish last, we start first. You're one-minded, you couldn't last on start search. Now you can go on a beat and watch the flow begin. And man, we don't think we can dance, dog. We know we can. Cheers. Versatile, entertainer. I am versatile, entertainer. F-F-I-V-E-E. Yes, that's me. Everybody just move, you move, we move, let's move, just move. Yes,
Dougie.
Sound City,
Marc.
Productions, Stuck Lab, yeah.
Davey. Generation Bless. Shout out to Chris Crosby.
Dougie.
Hey.
Hey.
Here we go.
Hello.
Man, that thing still rocks.
How y'all feeling?
Still rock. It still rocks like nobody's business.
There we go.
Welcome.
Crosby.
Here we are again. My people, back in black again as always. Live, and we talk movement. We are here to talk about our virtual workshop that is starting next Tuesday to Thursday, the 4th to the 6th. Move Beyond the Step. And we have all of the faculty that will be teaching in the workshop. On the live chat today, we have Dougie Styles. I'm just go off on let me turn this. Dougie Styles, Marc Spaulding, Monique Haley, David Crosby, and Brandy Lee. And of course,
what's up?
Truly Dr. Ross Mikey C in the place to be. All right, here we go. Monique, it's always a joy to see your face. I see these scraggly dudes every so often.
I was just about to say, can I say hey to Monique? Because I haven't seen her in forever.
I know.
Hey! So happy to see you. Oh my goodness. Mwah.
You too. I know, all the love. I know.
Yeah. And then my brother DC.
I'm so glad I got a chance to see you when you came out to LA last year. So
for a smidgen.
For a smidgen, yes.
What were you doing out in LA?
Oh, I took the students. My students were they have their senior experience trip, and so during that time they're taking classes at Millennium, and then I got to have lunch with Marc. Yeah.
Oh,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we're gonna let our guest artists kind of introduce themselves, but for those of y'all that know Five, or I'm a versatile entertainer, then you're gonna know something about myself. You're gonna know something about Dougie. You're gonna know something about Marc, and probably David. David is, for lack of a better way of putting it, David is our protege, man. David is like the guy who's come to university, now built himself his career, and you know, and when we met David, he was just first starting out. So I'm glad that David has stayed steadfast in movement and recognizing that movement is his life, and transcended his boundaries and limitations of what movement was for him to get to where he is now. And then we have Miss Brandy, who is meeting for the first time, but attend school with Marc and Dougie. But Brandy, do you want to introduce yourself first? Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you at, what you bout.
Woo! Everybody, it's so good to be here with you today. So just to give a brief history of how I know these guys. I know Marc from high school. We grew up in the DC area together and danced together. He attended the Duke Ellington School of the Arts, and I attended Jones Haywood. And so we had a lot of the same teachers, and sometimes they would bring us in together for collaboration. So I've known Marc for a very long time. And then about, I would say maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I met Dougie, working with Collage Dance Collective down in Memphis. And I had the opportunity to work with Marc at Collage as well. And so we've just been knowing each other, working together, dancing together for years and years. And then when I showed up at the UC Irvine Master of Fine Arts for Dance audition, was it 2 Januaries ago, unbeknownst to me, they were planning to be there as well. And so we're all actually matriculating through the UC Irvine MFA program in dance right now together, which has just been an extreme joy. And I'm just loving how our lives have continued to intersect. And so with all of that being said, I am a ballet dancer as well as a modern dancer. My training is in classical ballet. And then I went off into the Ailey School eventually and joined Ailey 2, and then went on to dance with the Lion King for several years, the national tour, and as well as Collage Dance Collective, which is now in the process of building a really wonderful, beautiful building for ballet. It's a Black ballet company. We know that diversity is sorely needed in the ballet world. So I'm very proud to have been and continue to be a part of that organization. And at UC Irvine, I'm focusing on ways to diversify and decolonize ballet. So here we are. Thank you.
Woo, well done.
There's
oh,
so
man.
much. There's so much. And
love it.
That whole notion of decolonization is where I think the wave of the now, and it's an interesting concept, but you know, I have many things that I could say about that, but I'm not going to talk about that at this present moment. I'm going to let my sister Monique spread some words and give us an introduction of her splendor and her glory and her loveliness.
Hi. Okay. So, well, I've known Mikey and Dougie and Marc for a long time now. We went to college at University of the Arts together. And, but Mikey, I've known since before that we grew up in the same area. So I knew of him kind of through my best friend. So there's kind of a little bit of a connection there before we actually got to school together. But let's see, where do I start? I started, my main thing in my professional, I was the first Black woman to be in River North Dance Chicago when it was still up and running, contemporary jazz company. I joined them in 2001, I believe, and I was with them for 9 years. And within that time, I got to kind of explore different outlets of my choreography and just getting little chances here and there. And then I knew I had an inkling to want to leave and do something more. So I actually did musical theater right after leaving. I got to assist with some choreographic projects with that in the regional area in Chicago. And then it took me to do a couple of things just with a short touring with the Jungle Book at the time. And then randomly, I was I was like, what am I going to do next? Not that I didn't want to perform, not that I didn't want to do, continue. I just was at one of those stopping points as artists where you're like, what's the next thing? And I had a random in my junk mail invitation. It was in my junk mail to come and do a term position at Western Michigan University. And I was like, well, never wanted to go back to school to teach at a university to do anything like that. And so, but I've always followed my spirit. I've always followed what I thought was best for me, made decisions based off what my instincts were on the inside to go follow my dreams. So I went, I tried, never left, got my master's at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And luckily, the thing inside of me that, like, I'm a very passionate dancer, have always been really expressive. And from a young age, I understood that there was always something more that I was dancing towards or dancing for. So my master's, getting that 2 years, it's been 2 years. I got it in 2018, I can't believe that. Yes, while working at Western. Okay, I would not recommend those of you who are in school still to get a job at the university full time. Okay, and get your master's. Insane. But I did it, and it took me to my focus, which is researching African cultural values and ritual and placing that in the jazz dance pedagogy. So in doing that, I'm working on the diasporic encounter method, which was based off of my thesis, and putting those tactics inside of my class flow. So there is a sense of ritual, there is a sense of community and understanding amongst my dancers that is past the studio after they've done this type of work, but it's rooted in African root with jazz. And so that's where I'm at right now.
Hence the roots of jazz.
Hence the roots
of jazz, which is why we called her class the roots of jazz.
Yeah.
So, David.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
David Crosby, tell the people about yourself.
Yes, sir. First, let me start off by saying it's an honor and a pleasure to be a part of this project. I've been itching to work with you guys again for years now. I met Dougie, Marc, and Mikey years and years and years ago, and I'm pretty much like they said, I'm their protege. So these three guys have been my mentors for years, and I've actually started off as a beginner and had the honor and the pleasure to be able to end up eventually choreographing for projects that they trusted me with.
And essentially, David, you did that too.
Correct. I started off as like a fight choreographer. Martial arts was a big part of my life. I'm a 3rd-degree black belt. Me and my father owned a martial arts studio in Cherry Hill. And I really started incorporating a lot of martial arts movement into my choreography and really developed my teaching style through the martial arts. I've done a ton of projects with the guys. My main project was working with Raven Simone. I started off as a dancer, and then as the guys started to get their gigs, they kind of boosted me up to choreographer. And my thing is, I'm just a great teacher. I love to help people learn. Every student is different. You can't go approaching each student the same way. And I've had the honor to teach a lot of different things, from acting to martial arts to dance to working with kids that have disability and things of that sort. So teaching is my passion in essence. And there is no separation between movement and life for me. And I get joy out of trying to help people's mind connect to that. And that's pretty much it. I'm glad to be a part of the project, and I can't wait to collab with you guys.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh man, always a pleasure.
It is.
And David will be teaching hip hop.
Yeah.
Just to make that known.
Yes. If we didn't mention, Brandy will be teaching ballet. That's on Thursday. David is also teaching for 2 days out of the workshop festival. Monique will be teaching 2 days on Tuesday and Wednesday. I will be teaching Ethio-modern dance. For those of you that don't know, that was the premise of my research. Even before I went to do my master's in ethnochoreology and my PhD at the University of Limerick in the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance, I was already researching what is now called Ethio-modern dance. And I attribute that to Dougie, because it was Dougie that planted the seed of ethnochoreology in my head. When I moved back to the States in about 2010, after living in Ethiopia for about 4 years, I had already started incorporating Ethiopian culture into my contemporary dance process, and decided to switch what I was calling my work Afro-modern to Ethio-modern, and to really highlight the Ethiopian influence in the work, even though I was still doing Afro-modern dance, so to speak. It was African diaspora influence movement. But there was something important about highlighting the influence of Ethiopia on my work, which also resonated with highlighting the influence that Ethiopia has had on the world, and then the influence that the world has had on Ethiopia. So that is what really helped me to start manifesting the whole Ethio-modern dance thing. But Dougie found the term ethnochoreology and was like, yo, dude, this looked like something that you'd be into. You go and do your master's. So I looked it up in Wikipedia, you know, and the University of Limerick is the one school that had a 1-year master's program. And, you know, the rest is kind of history. I got there and was able to contribute my knowledge of the stuff that I had, and then also learn from what they were sharing, and ended up staying to do my PhD. And now Ethio-modern dance has since become my niche. It's something that is, I think, being recognized as an integral part of African diaspora and the African diasporan lens in relationship to movement, and then also looking at Africa as a continent and the scope of the multiplicities of diversity that come from African culture. A lot of times with those of us from the African American experience, we look to West Africa for our connections, generally because that's where most of us were transported from the continent. But again, Africa is a continent, and many of the enslaved Africans came from different parts of the continent, but were taken from the continent from the West Coast. And for me as a Rastafarian, I find it important to always look at the scope of Africa in its continental sense. So I saw an opportunity to engage with the Fertile Crescent of civilization, the origins of modern day religions, the origins of coffee, and to be able to really plant that seed of the Ethiopian connection to the rest of the world. So that's kind of how I got into Ethio-modern dance, and what I'll be teaching on the Tuesday and the Thursday of the Move Beyond the Step virtual dance workshop.
Excellent. I just want to interject into that, because everybody's speaking so wonderfully. But the idea of how everyone, I think everyone has kind of said this in a sense of taking their movement forward. You know, it's not just a performing arts, it's within your lifestyle, and it's a way of traveling and diversifying what we think dance is. And like how Mikey just said, you know, he heard we found this term. I told him about the term, and just so you guys know, it was maybe a week or two before Mikey sent me an email saying, yo, I'm leaving. I'm going to Ireland to get my master's. I've already signed up. You know, I've been talking to the people. I was like, I just told you this last week, but that's Mikey. And I know it because, you know, you take it and you have to move forward. And David, I know it's the same way. You know, you speak it in. Well, all of you. I've had moments, I think, with all of you where, you know, you have to take that moment and you have to ride it out. You have to journey. You have to find what that movement is about. And I think ultimately that's the underlying tone that we're trying to teach these students once they come into the dance workshop. Yes, you're learning movement, but you're also learning how to move through life. You're learning how to take control of your gift, of your hard work, your effort, your dreams, your goals, and move beyond just those steps. This is what we're talking about. It's a life journey and I just want the audience to kind of, as they're listening to everybody's story, is to kind of make that connection of, this is what we mean about move beyond the step. The dance is one element, but the dance takes you on another dance throughout life. And that's how you end up mingling and dancing with wonderful individuals like this. You know what I mean? So didn't mean to throw us off, but I wanted to kind of have that in there.
Poignant, man. You know, dance is a part of the movement. Dance is not the movement. And when we talk about move beyond the step, then we're talking about moving beyond this concept of dance. Because you've heard me say this before, dance is a Eurocentric subjective term based upon someone's valued aesthetic of what they see as dance. So for us as people that recognize that movement is life, and people that come from probably indigenous cultures that do not separate this notion of dance, theater, and it's just a matter of an expression of life, I think another way of looking at what we're doing is trying to transcend the boundary and limitations of dance. Because life is about movement. And you may have a dance within that movement, but movement transcends the boundary of what dance is, and humans are movers. Without movement, there is no life from a very somatic perspective. Once there ceases to be any movement within a vessel, there's no longer any life force in that vessel. So
with that being said, why don't we just talk a little bit about one or two maybe core values or things that each teacher hopes to disseminate to their students, they hope to get across in their classes. Maybe one or two things that they'd like to highlight. What are you going to be focusing in your class? I know for me, I'll start off. I know for me, for this workshop, I'll be teaching contemporary. And, the word contemporary is so interesting because it's thrown out a lot and it's used and it's a popular label. But if you ask people, what is contemporary? No two people will have the same definition because most people don't know what it is, right? So I know for me, using contemporary as an adjective, as something that is just a description of what's happening now, what's currently happening in your life, and how you funnel that with other codified movement. So that's what I'll be focusing on. With my background, I have a lot of experience in several different genres and several different styles. So when I'm putting or creating movement, I'm pulling from different sources of genres and techniques. So, and funneling that movement with a perspective of what's happening right now in my life. That's what's contemporary. That's what makes the movement contemporary for me. So just being able to pull from several different genres so they see the connectivity, the interrelationship of how different aesthetics kind of work together is one thing that I hope to get across to my students. And then also I would say finding quality of movement, finding their own individual quality within movement, I would say are some things and concepts that I'm going to be working on in my class. So anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I'll step in. For me, first of all, I miss you guys, man. It's just good to hear everyone's voice and see everybody's face, man. I wish we could do this in person, man. I really do. For me, and this comes from Mikey, this comes from a time where I was really emotionally pushed in a rehearsal. And these words for me have been in my mind ever since. And for me, the whole thing for my class is, what are you saying? I remember there was a time in rehearsal and I just, you couldn't tell me I was not killing this choreography. I was tearing it up. And, I just know I'm every step formations, I'm killing it. And Mikey turns and he literally screams at me at the top of his lungs, "David, what are you saying? I feel nothing." And it literally broke me because physically I was giving my all. I was step for step there. But mentally and spiritually, there was no connection. I wasn't saying anything. I was not really connected to the project. And these words literally have stuck with me from a teenager going into adulthood whenever I'm approaching projects or doing choreography in general. Yeah, you can get the step, but at this point, I'm figuring with all these students, they're semi-professionals or going on to be professionals. It's about, what are you saying? Because when we hold auditions and we're looking for people, it's not about the choreography anymore. Everybody's going to have the choreography. It's about the individual expression and how well they're interpreting what we're saying as choreographers. So for me, because I'm teaching hip hop, and it's, I guess you could call it a little bit more on the social fun side, where we're not going to be hitting a lot of woes in my class at all. It's going to be more about me leaving space to force people to bring themselves within the choreography. and really have to say something themselves and pull out from themselves within that they have to connect themselves with the movement and get comfortable with themselves. Because if you're uncomfortable with yourself, you're always going to be trying to regurgitate or mimic someone else's interpretation, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I'm going to just force people to look within themselves and tell me what they're saying in my class through the movement. That's pretty much where I'm at.
Can
I love that.
David's thing or anybody else talks? It's interesting that David talks about hip hop and what him teaching hip hop and really focusing on the identity of the self within hip hop, because we are of the generation that comes before hip hop. We don't come from hip hop as popular culture. So when we were growing up, that notion of identity in hip hop was so prevalent. There was a line that people used to say, there ain't no future in frontin'. And when you looked at the scope of hip hop during the time when we grew up, there was all this array of diversity. And so to resurrect that notion of identity within how people express themselves through the vernacular of hip hop movement is something that's very well needed. That's all I want.
Yeah. And the idea of storytelling, that goes back to the foundation of movement itself. I mean, movement was used to pass down history, to tell stories, to, awaken the next generation and let them know what has happened, what we went through, and how to move forward. And I think over the time, we've kind of lost that connection of it being, the first language, pretty much. And so I think we're descendants of that, of teaching how to pass on stories and different conversations through our movement, and which is that more primal, it's innate, it's the very foundation of who we are as creatures on this earth. We tend to use the ground, use the earth to kind of shape and manifest what it is that we're trying to say. And all our different genres of movement, or you can, when you're talking about language, I guess it would be what would you call a dialect? All these different dialects of how to say certain things. So I think as we teach our students, especially in this workshop, and letting them know that they are descendants of, a heritage, something that they can kind of go back to. It's not just about, oh, I'm a great hip hop dancer, I'm a great tap dancer. No, you're a great storyteller. It's bigger than just that. That's when we keep going back to move beyond just those steps. You have to understand that what you're a part of, because a lot of the times dance doesn't really get the credit that it deserves. But the more they learn about how functional their gift can be, and it's not just for entertainment purposes, you know what I mean? It's to educate. And like Mikey says all the time, edutainment, education and entertainment. Max, I love that. We got to put that on the shirt. Exactly, is a part of it. And DC just kind of, brought that back of, what are you saying? What story are you, what are you trying to convey besides just a whoa on a beat? Yes, I'm not saying don't do the whoa, but what does that mean right now? Have some kind of context of what you're saying, why you're saying it, so it has longevity, right, and it has meaning, and it can touch someone, and the story continues to go.
What everyone's saying, for me, I always get back to what's familiar to the majority of Black folk. I feel like we do live, the lived experience is within our dancing. So I know that Dave just said that too. Like that's the lived experience. So how do we put our lived experiences within our Eurocentric understanding of movement, and own it rather than it being put upon us? then we start to go back to what I like to say in reference. So I'll probably talk about, I know I say authentic ethos. For me, my authentic ethos is an epic memory. And an epic memory is from my ancestors. My ancestors, that's an ancestral pull as to why I'm even drawn to jazz. Because the rhythm, the beat, the groundedness, the get down notion of all of it, so the polyrhythm, the polysynder. So I'll be talking about things that sound like isolation, so our more Eurocentric and Westernized understanding of movement in my class. I'll start to use those words and have you understand it so it's felt movement, so it's felt authentically, rather than it being like, okay, we're going to go through isolation, and I don't tell you what really to isolate what that means, and like where that came from and why and how, so that yes, I might be giving you the steps, the 6, 7, 8s, you know, or the endas, okay, but I also am going to be asking of the students to remember a sense of ownership when they found freedom when they were moving before it was put into a structure. And so when you're dancing, then you get to own every bit of those things I might have shared with you. And I think that's innate to jazz. You know, improvisation is ownership. You know, that's a big part of jazz dance too. So I think while teaching, and yes, I'll give a good old combo, but we'll be talking about these really taking it back to the root of the understanding of what these things really do come from an African understanding. It is not, I'm not doing African dance, okay? I'm not, that is not my specialty. I'm a jazz teacher, but I have the understanding that I'm building with my, putting the Africanist presence within my movement and my teaching. Yeah.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. And I think I'll go next with tap, if you don't mind, because it kind of feeds off of what Monique was just speaking about, your rhythms, the sounds, polyrhythms, all that kind of stuff, and owning the movement. Because what I plan on discussing in my class, and this is a quote that I've used since I think I was like 15, but it's hear the sound, feel the rhythm. And ultimately it's about opening yourself up to absorb the sounds of life, and be moved by that. And it's one thing to, you know, just kind of hear things that are happening around you, but it's another to really dissect it and find out what's making those rhythms, what other rhythms within life are playing off of that. And so what is starting to teach you and build inside of you, especially as a tap dancer, are those improvisational skills, and learning how to take these different rhythms along with the vocabulary that you know, and be able to speak for yourself, because ultimately that's what it's about. You know, we're giving combinations all the time, but like Monique just said, if the improvisation, if you aren't able to take the information and speak it, make it your own, then what are you studying the language for? You know, that's, you know, you could study Spanish for, you know, 30 years, and then if you can't really speak the language, then you're what are you doing, right? So it's that same moment of, okay, I've learned this much. What can I say with this vocabulary now? What can I say? But the thing is that a lot of the times we don't get the opportunity to learn how to improv, to learn how to take it, you know, and make it our own. So I would like to focus that, you know, in this particular workshop, and really trying to cultivate people to create their own rhythms, create their own words. Now, I will, like Monique said, I will be teaching a combination, but within inside that combination, there will be opportunities for you to speak and say what it is that you want. And prior to that, I will give you instructions and ways of how to tap into that. Yeah. So that's where and it's an open class. So that means that if you're taking the tap and you think, oh, I'm not that good. What I tend to do is give 3 different levels. So I'll give the same step maybe as a base or foundation for those that are, you know, in the fundamental aspects of tap. And then I'll give 2 other variations that will kind of teeter you up to maybe an advanced level. And then from there, you can take it upon yourself to kind of mix and match, remix it. But that's what we, you know, kind of do as tappers. We borrow, we extend and do all that. So we'll have a good time. Like we said, not only banging out a hot combo, but learning how to take a verse for yourself. Yeah. And that's what I'll be coming from with tap.
I'll go now. So, so for me, ballet has always been kind of home base. And I mentioned previously that I have performed in a modern company, which was Ailey 2, and then also The Lion King, which was choreographed by Garth Fagan, whose company I saw in college. And I decided that when I saw his company women jumping as high as his company men, that was certainly something that I wanted to be a part of, because it was just beautiful to me, the way that the women were representing on the stage. And so when I ended up in The Lion King, I was like, wow, my prayer has been answered. And then to return after that to a ballet company and be able to, you know, put the pointe shoes on again, I really have to say that the discipline that came from my training in ballet is what really allowed me. That was the through line that carried me all the way through the last 20 years of as a performer. And so I guess what I would say, if I had to sum it up in a phrase, in a couple of words or 3, it would be transcendence through technique, and how we use our technique to move through and over and to different places in our lives. And so ballet, I haven't always been able to practice ballet at the highest level, because that's not what my career necessarily demanded of me in the moment. But there was always a ballet bar for me as a warm-up, particularly when I was at the Lion King. At Ailey, we did a lot of different types of warm-ups. But when at the Lion King, I had to warm myself up. And so for me, it was just a ballet bar. And it wasn't anything, you know, too crazy. It was just to warm myself up. And so what I would say is that ballet at its very basic level can be transformative and empowering. And if you use it in that way as a tool, it can really serve you. It can really serve you in a long-term capacity. And so I would just encourage people, if you haven't taken a ballet class before, don't worry. I'll give you a nice basis that you can work from. And then for the more advanced dancers in the room who have had some ballet training, I will guide you to ways you can make certain exercises more challenging. But again, I'd like to echo just what the amazing faculty has already said, in that we are storytellers. And so I'm always looking at how my students, even at the bar, how we are engaging with our audience, whether that audience is just one person, even if it's an audience of one, who is yourself first, you know, because you're looking within and bringing out your truth and sharing it with whoever else may be watching. You know, how are we using our technique to tell a story? And right now, more than ever, we know that our stories must be told. We must have a platform. We must use our platform to share our truths, what that looks like to the rest of the world, because the world needs to know what the truth is. And who better to tell your truth than you? And the more tools you have to tell that truth, the better off we all will be as a dance community and as a world community. So yes, transcendence through technique.
I love it.
Wow, y'all! I want to
Amazing,
take everybody's
amazing.
class. Everybody
Right?
get me excited. Like seriously.
I know that's the
Sherman.
truth. I know.
Marc, you go.
Now,
Okay, do I
now
talk?
one thing I wait a minute. I want to say something about what Brandy was just saying, and it kind of really took me there too, because she was mentioning about the ballet bar. And I know even for myself, although, you know, I'm technically trained and everything, you know, ballet isn't necessarily I would consider my forte, you know, but ballet is something about the ballet bar that, you know, can be, like she said before, transcendent, you know, almost like yoga. It can be meditative. So I want people to know that your art form, however you look at it, whether it's performing or, you know, storytelling, it can be your meditation as well. And finding out ways of how you can use your movement to calm yourself, to, like she said, warm yourself, to acknowledge yourself, and to keep your body in a well, I would say maintain. You know, it's that maintenance. Ballet bar gives you, whether or not you're doing hip hop or tap or anything else, you know, jazz, ballet, you know, can still give you that maintenance to your body, accentuating the lines, and finding, it's almost like, you know, just going back through your ABCs sometimes, you know, just to make sure of certain, you know, elements. Oh, okay, I know what an A is, but let me just go back and write it again. Let me see if I can write it exactly the way it's supposed to be, right? And you can get lost in that kind of technique, and utilizing that as a spiritual thing is very important. So for those that can sometimes be turned away from ballet because you do a lot of hip hop, or you do a lot of tap, or even a lot of modern and jazz, ballet bar is different from taking a full-on ballet class, and it's a little bit more welcoming. So I urge all of you who don't necessarily take ballet to really use this opportunity as your gateway to kind of get in, to see what it's about, to understand it. And those that have been taking ballet, finding a different way of enjoying what it is, and using it more as a moment of meditation for yourself. Because those that don't know, Brandy has an extensive background in yoga as well. So those two, with that knowledge and kind of interjecting that knowledge into the ballet body, she's a professional at that. So
That's what I really wanted to
that
say,
would be
is
yeah.
that I have a personal experience with ballet. For those of y'all that know me from UArts, I always had a love-hate relationship with ballet because I couldn't understand how it applied to my body. Us being people of the African diaspora, the Africanist experience, it's a very Eurocentric concept. Me getting into dance and having to study ballet and put myself into those positions felt very foreign. I think the whole time I was in UArts, I had a real resistance to ballet, even though I was learning it and I was improving. It wasn't until I went to do my master's to where I really understood the whole concept of the soma, the whole concept of somatic practices, and how somatic practice was so much a part of my being as a mover, especially through my experience with Pilates. I then started to take ballet again as an elective. And I was able to find myself within ballet at the bar and find the life that is my own within this structure. And that a lot of what people have been saying, I think it's so readily poignant in the forefront of my mind because I just watched it yesterday. But Black is King. There are all of these moments of representation of how we are influenced by Eurocentric idealism, but we transcend what they have forced upon us and use it in a way to liberate ourselves. And finding that balance, and we talk about decolonization of ballet, the notion of decolonizing is an ongoing journey. I think we can never fully decolonize. I think there's a certain level of acceptance of what the colonizer has done to the world or affected the world that's a part of the standard that we all live by. How do we embrace these certain notions but still transcend to have a life of purpose that is beyond what the colonizer ever intended for us? You know what I mean? So I think a lot of what everyone has touched on really resonates with that notion of, again, moving beyond the step. We as creators can give a step to a person that's in our class or we're choreographing on. But like what we've all been saying is, how do you then take that step, apply your identity to that step, and move beyond in order to transmit some level of a story of your experience? And what we've spoken about is that now is the time where we are all attempting to tell our stories. Because if you don't tell your story, then somebody else may tell your story and may jack it up. We have a gift to study ourselves, to explore ourselves in relationship to others, in relationship to our culture, in relationship to the world that we live in, to make sure that what mark we leave is clear about what we wanted to represent to humanity, not just to dance. And I attribute my notion of shifting from being a dancer to a mover from the time that I was in Pilobolus. But we, you know, there's something that we all have the capacity to do by telling our own story to be the vehicles of change in the world the way that we want to see it.
Right, beautiful.
I want to step
in
in here and say, just to kind of piggyback off of what Mikey's saying about decolonization, when we talk about movement, but still embracing certain concepts, understanding that, you know, many people are transient, right? We live in societies that you have many different people passing through. And so therefore there's a certain cultural sharing or stealing or borrowing. And so there's many different influences when we talk about movement and we talk about just culture in general. And so as dancers, especially growing up, you know, in America, of course, there's many we're knowingly or unknowingly, we've absorbed different influences from different places. So I think as you gain more experience moving through this art form, or you just gain more life experience, you understand that you have influences coming from so many different places that you may not have been aware of as a mover. So I just want to point that out. But then also too, Mikey was talking about, and Brandy was talking about right now, what's going on right now. So what I want to kind of shift the conversation or get your thoughts on is, we have to acknowledge the platform. We're not going to be in a studio. We're all sharing. All these classes are going to be virtual, right? So we're disseminating this information through this virtual platform. So can we kind of talk a little bit about some of these things that we're going to be sharing in our classes? How are you adapting to the current conditions of teaching and of choreographing through a virtual platform? What are your thoughts on the virtual platform?
Go ahead. I was gonna say, I'm gonna be honest. For me, it's rough because I am all about energy and connection. Personally, I mean, that's just how I live my life in general. So to not be able to touch or feel or be able to necessarily really look someone in their eyes and pick up on their energy, it saddens me. I'm gonna be real when I say that. But I am probably one of the most flexible people you guys will ever meet. So I've been able to adapt to this new virtual, I guess, teaching.
That's relative, Dave. You ain't got no stretch, bro.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
God.
It's I need more human interaction personally for me. I just got to be 100% and say that it's tough for me, especially when if there's someone where I see that I could just move their arm or their leg or just touch them in a way to that they can grasp the movement a little bit better. And I can't do that. So I have to verbally kind of explain to people a lot more on adjusting themselves, which is kind of weird for me. But I mean, we got to make the best of it, you know? And I think it's a good thing because it challenges people to, once again, go into themselves and really, really have to listen, take that information, and transform it out through the movement. So it's challenging for us as teachers, but I also think it's a good thing because it's going to challenge the students as well to step their game up, you know?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Oh,
I think, go ahead.
Can I just say, before I forget it, because now I'm 41 and I forget things easier. So, and all my glory. Okay. Before I transition, because there's one thing I wanted to say on Brandy's point about ballet being a tool. It is a tool, just like if the technique that is more holistically understood in the body is tap or jazz, and it's not ballet, or it is ballet and not the other. That's your foundational tool. But all of them are tools to transcend. All of them are. So they all should be absorbed in a way that, you give it a chance to that more, meditative state that Dougie was talking about, to give them a chance in your body to be understood. For me, ballet was not understood as much until I understood how the curvilinear actually helped me to embody my natural state. So I know ballet is linear, but the curvilinear helped me to dance it with feeling, so that is something that when I figured that out, I was like, I'm dancing, but this is just different, different terms being used, and I could figure that out for myself. And that's how I found connectivity for me. And I'm okay, and I will move on. But just like George Balanchine found the curvilinear to help himself and then put all of that dynamic into ballet and share it with the European peoples, okay?
Africanist principles that he inserted into ballet.
Yes. And that's something that's not always talked about. And I think there should be more talk about how this, icon that is this George Balanchine was influenced by African peoples. And that's what changed ballet for him. Okay.
Right.
So the next thing, what were we talking about? See, because I forgot it. I had to get that out. What was the next thing we were talking about? Shoot,
the virtual platform.
Oh, okay. So I've had the opportunity to work as a teacher in it, working it, like this with the boxes. And at first I was like, this is difficult. But I actually found, just as you were saying, actually the students, when I spoke to students about how the experience was, it was actually more informative for them because we are having to speak with them a little bit more. I'm like, okay, everyone zone in on Sally. Okay, so let's look at this. And that's how I have to give my touch cue, is by focusing on one person and everyone looking, and then they go and they work on it themselves to kind of embody it. So I've been finding different ways to kind of build that connectivity where they're actually getting a little bit more out of it than I thought they would, because as a teacher, you're so worried about but this is not how it normally is, So I actually think that this is helping some things. There's always something that is actually more valuable as you begin to shift,
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I'll chime in. Oh, I'm sorry, Brandy. I'll let you
I would just like to say that it's certainly been bittersweet having to work in this medium. One of the obvious blessings is that we do get to open our borders, so to speak, and welcome more people in. And so I feel like this workshop would have cost a lot more money and resources to plan on location somewhere. But now here we all are. It didn't cost anything but whatever technology was needed. And through the Zoom, I have found that my students are still showing up. They're still dedicated. They're still passionate. They still want to learn, and so do I. And so as long as we're partners in that, then we're good to go. Let's keep it moving.
Yes.
Excellent. And I have two things actually. One from what, the conversation we had earlier about the decolonization of ballet and going into the virtual. But what I wanted to say about the ballet, because I know a lot of the time people shun away from the subject because they think it's a race thing, or they think it's a black and white thing. But I want to make sure that they understand it opens the door, or decolonizing it opens the door for body types. And the whole idea of, you don't have to look a certain way to do a certain type of movement. And that goes beyond the color of your skin. No, people are shaped differently. And, and historically ballet wasn't necessarily open to that. And so that's another aspect that we're talking about, that, Brandy is talking about when you're talking about decolonizing it, is opening the genre up to different body structures, types, weight, everything. Because like we said before, movement is king. It is. So it's the mover. That's what we're focusing on. So don't think I can't do ballet, or I can't do tap, or I can't do this because my body doesn't look like this, or like her, or like him. And it's not about that. That's what we're focusing on, breaking down those particular walls or ideology of what dancers should look like, or how they should move, or all of these different limitations that they have put on dancers or movers within their own world. So that's a whole and it takes education, and the more people that know about it will know and change it for the generations to come. So that's another element that we're talking about when you say decolonizing certain genres of dance. It's because it wasn't open to the different skin tones and body structures of individuals coming from, whether that's Africa or Europe, because not everybody in Europe look the same as well. So you have to understand that too. And then moving virtually, teaching tap, for one thing, I'm a tech head, so I love the fact that we can do this on online. And my brothers would tell you, I've been trying to get them to do this for maybe even 7 to 10 years ago. I've been wanting to take this journey.
That's true.
10 years, Dougie. At least 10 years.
At least 10 years I've been trying to do this virtually. So to see it finally here, I love it. At the same time, I'm like, man, we could have been on top of this, guys. We could have. But what I find with tap, and I teach a lot of tap classes virtually through a couple of studios and universities that I'm associated with. But I find that the tap in itself is easy. Now, when you're adding music, that's when it becomes a little interesting, because of the lag, because of the distortion, and things of that nature. And being that I do a lot of my work off of my iPad Pro, You know, and dealing with Zoom, it doesn't give me the shared audio. So I have to, you know, have my music to the side and have it there. Although my students can hear it, I find myself not using music as often, but rather having them recreate these rhythms and music together. And I've also had them utilize their environment, meaning that they're dropping stuff, they're knocking stuff over, they're creating sounds and then having to mimic the sounds that they hear. And then we put it together. So I find that that's another kind of way of having them involve their environment into their art form. So we'll be doing some of that kind of stuff during our class. So yeah, look for some objects that you don't mind dropping and playing with and creating some noise. And then from there, you can steal other noises from somewhere else. And now you have a kind of a context of what you're doing. Like, oh, this is my chair fall ball drop.
Like a sound
combo. It's a sound pattern. Yeah. So, and
palette.
Sound, what was that?
Sound palette, like, you know.
Ooh, I like that sound palette. Check, I'm using it. Excellent. But that's what I've kind of had to work around, especially when dealing with teaching tap.
Do we want to just give some information, just on the workshop dates, make sure everyone has the times for the public?
Do anything. You do it, bro. You turn the mic on. Let the people know.
Right. Yes. So we're gonna run through. You know, I gotta keep you two on track as you guys go off on tangents. So
well, that's why it's the three of us. We keep each other.
Go ahead, pull out.
Make it happen.
Okay, Dr. Ross. So going on to, we're gonna start off the day on Tuesday, August 4th, right? All times are Eastern Standard Times, right? So we have, starting off at 12 noon Eastern Time, we have Ethio Modern with Dr. Ross. Yes, followed by, we have a 1 p.m. hip hop with David Crosby. At 2 p.m., we have Roots of Jazz with Monique Haley. And 4 p.m., we have Contemporary with yours truly, Marc Spaulding. Moving on to Wednesday, August 5th at 12 noon p.m. I'll be teaching Contemporary, starting the day off. Then we have our new schedule, our switch up. At 2 p.m., we have Tap with Sir Dougie Styles. And then at 4 p.m., we have Roots of Jazz with Monique Haley once again. Thursday, August 6th, starting off the day, 12 p.m., we have ballet. We have Ballet Bar with Brandy Lee. Yes. 1 p.m., we have Tap with Dougie Styles again. At 4 p.m., we have Ethio Modern with Dr. Ross Mikey. And 5 p.m., finishing the day off, we have hip hop with David Crosby. So, please register today. We still have some slots available. We hope to see all of you guys out there.
We did have to register during the time of this conversation, so we appreciate all those people who tuned in and wanted to be a part of what we're putting down. It will be an event that you don't want to miss because the things that we happen to have our hands in, for those who experience it, they carry the experience through everything that they do from that point on. For those that don't experience, they end up hearing about it and being like, oh, I wish I had. Don't be the latter. You know what I mean? If you have the opportunity to participate, like, we're only asking for $5 per class. It's not a lot of money that we're asking for. And you will get more than what you paid for. Trust me. So,
and also, if you're really looking at the schedule, you'll see that there's, kind of a lunch break or in between the entire thing. During that break, we may be online doing this, where you can kind of come into the Zoom conversation and speak to us personally about different aspects of movement, whether it's about dance and technology, Ethio, modern roots of jazz, ballet, bar, you know, hip hop and martial arts, you know, whether it's about contemporary dance, Black choreographers, anything. We'll have that time open, and one of the representatives, at least from, you know, the day, will be there to kind of talk to you and further your questions on movement in general. Cool. So that it's about educating, and it's about passing the torch, and it's about spreading the information across all the platforms. So we look forward to seeing all of you, and can't wait to feel your energy through this virtual field. And we look forward to moving beyond the step, because that's what we do. That's life.
Drew, any closing remarks from anyone? Any sign-offs before we sign off?
I just wanted to say really quick, it's really, really important for everybody that's listening. You have a tremendous opportunity to take class with some really, really extremely amazing people who have given me principles just beyond dance that I've taken into my adulthood and even into my fatherhood. So it'd be adamant for everybody to make sure that you guys take the opportunity to get to pick these brains and get in class and be challenged. And also to those people watching, that you actually motivate us as well as instructors and teachers. You guys help give us passion, and it is an exchange. So everybody sign up, and I can't wait to feel everybody's energy through the screen, as Dougie said earlier. It's been an honor and a pleasure with you guys, man.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Anybody else?
Brandy.
I just want to say thank you all so much for inviting me to join you all in this wonderful opportunity to dance and to share dance with our community and with the world at large at this time. The arts are so crucial as we're all closed off more into our own silos. And so this is a way that we can continue to be open and to let some light shine on us. So thank you all, the faculty. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Monique? You muted.
Oh, me? I am.
You good. Again.
Hello?
Yeah, you good.
Okay. I can't wait to experience everyone this week. And I just wanted to say, continue to take care of yourselves and be ready and open to what's about to come, because it's going to be good. And I know that we're all excited to be there with you. So.
Yeah.
Big Dougals? Dougie, you got any last? You got any last? Anything?
No. See y'all then. Let's do it. Enough talking. Let's move it.
Next week, Tuesday to Thursday. Be sure, if you haven't signed up, all the information is in the comments of the post of this live. So when you watch it back, if you're not watching it live, you can see where you can register, all that kind of stuff. So we look forward to seeing you, and we will continue to keep the movement flowing beyond the steps. So this will not be the last if you don't miss it.
Hey.
Hey.
Bye, everybody.
I love it.
Love it.